I think I may have found some positive news when it comes to Hedera. And let's take a look at this, right? Not too long ago, it was reported that, Zonix X, right? I've never heard about that. But even besides that, Zonix X and Steg X, they launched $100+ million compliant tokenized real estate on Hedera using ERC 7518. Now, some people may be thinking, okay, we've never heard about Zonix or Steg X. I've never heard about it either. But in my opinion, the way you take a look at it, this is great because, again, if I take a look at something like this, what I focus on is the real estate part of it. And I think this really does give Hedera a lot of more possibilities moving forward because, again, when I usually think about Hedera, I don't think about real estate. I don't really think about AI, right? Now I'm beginning to kind of think like that. When I take a look at, something like Hedera's AI Studio, when I take a look at something like this, right, going on, this is all very positive news when it comes to me. So when it comes to Hedera, man, I think it's such a unique project. Hedera hash graph, it's a directed acyclic graph, doesn't utilize traditional blockchain technology. I think it's so revolutionary because we've heard, some projects out there that are, primarily using traditional blockchain technology. We see them get involved with real estate. We see a lot of them get involved with AI, a lot of that, right? But the way you take a look at it is that when it comes to Hedera, it just takes things to a whole nother level because let me explain why Hedera hash graph I think it's just much better than a lot of projects out there because, again, if we take a look at a directed acyclic graph, aka, for short, right, the acronym is DAG. But even besides that, a DAG is typically a lot more scalable, typically consumes less energy, usually has improved data storage, and not to mention, right, it's typically also just overall very fast. So when we take a look at something like that, one has better I think qualities, right? Traditional blockchain technology or a directed acyclic graph. I think hands down, it's going to be something like Hedera hash graph. And we got to think about Hedera's governing council. And I think this really does give a lot of validation to something like Hedera because, one of the members of Hedera's governing council is Google. I mean, I think we all pretty much know Google. Of course, we're using YouTube, so we know Google. Not to mention, we take a look at Mondelez. Mondelez, their brands include something like Oreo and also Cliff, like the Cliff Bar, right? So I'm just naming a few here, but I'm just saying, when I take a look at something like Hedera, I think its governing council really does give it a lot of credibility, which is why I think that, moving forward, a lot of these people who are looking to partner with Hedera, I think they're taking a look at the governing council. I think they're taking a look at stuff like this, again, right, seeing real estate and seeing AI. I think something like, Hedera is very impressive. And again, my previous video was talking about Hedera's AI Studio and this one, real estate. Hedera is just on a roll right now. It really showcases that, what? Even though the price of HBAR is kind of stagnating, the project is still building. Hedera doesn't stop like that. It's not like a random nonsense project that kind of stops when things don't really move. No, they're not like that. They have a long-term, mindset, I would feel. And I have a long-term mindset too when it comes to Hedera. I don't think it's going to disappear anytime soon. And I think it's going to be around for a very long time. People like to say, oh, when it comes to Bitcoin, it's going to be around in 50 years. I'm totally aware of that. But when it comes to Hedera, I don't see why it won't be around in 50 years too. That's the way you take a look at it. Because again, when we're talking about these other projects that are using traditional blockchain technology, we don't know if they're going to be around in 50 years because there are so many competitors. What happens if a better, let's say, layer one blockchain pops up, right? What happens if another, project is more faster, a lot more scalable, but then it's using traditional blockchain technology? There's a lot of competition, I think, going on within that space. But when it comes to Hedera, because it's so unique, it's so interesting, I really do believe that it just sits on a league of its own. It really kind of reminds me of something like Caspa. If someone is bullish on Caspa, I think they'll pretty much know what I'm talking about because Caspa, it's a block DAG. It's very unique. It's very interesting. Just brings a very different approach. And when it comes to Hedera, again, Hedera hash graph uses directed acyclic graph. So it's a DAG. I think that when it comes to Hedera, it really, again, reminds you of something like Caspa. People like to say, again, Bitcoin's going to be around for a very long time, but I don't see why something this unique and this interesting won't be around for a very long time too. If it was using traditional blockchain technology, that's a different case, right? I don't know if it's going to be around in 30, 50 years, but because it's so different, I think it is hypothetically going to be around. And $3 when it comes to HBAR, that's still my price target. People like to say that $3 is around a 17x from here, so they think I'm being a little bit bearish, right? But the way you take a look at it is that, take a look at my earlier videos when I was talking about HBAR. The price was way lower. So let's say HBAR doing an additional, 17x from here, it doesn't seem too bad to me at least. And again, it may not have hypothetical potential to do like a 1000x or 100x because it's not a micro cap. The market cap's pretty big. Even despite that, the way you take a look at it is that it doesn't seem bad to me because think about, let's say, Bitcoin, right? What could Bitcoin do in the next 6 to 10 months, let's say? A lot of people are saying maximum, probably $300,000. But considering how Bitcoin is still over $100,000, even considering the slight pullback, 300K, that's still less than a 3x from here, slightly less. We have to think about this logically, right? What would be easier, or should I say what would have an easier time doing a 3x in the next 6 to 10 months? I think hands down it's going to be something like HBAR. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to do that, but then it just kind of feels a little bit easier because, again, in order for Bitcoin to do like a 3x, the price would have to be over $300,000. I'm not saying it can't reach it in the long term, but during this bull run, it seems like kind of that's the somewhat peak, I would assume. Because let's assume this as well, right? Does anyone really think that Bitcoin's going to go to the price of $1 million during this bull run? I don't think it could do that. Don't get me wrong. I'm very bullish on Bitcoin. I'm very bullish on the crypto space overall. But in the next 6 to 10 months, Bitcoin, I don't think could reach $1 million. A different case though, like for next cycle or like, the next 2 cycles or whatever, it's a different case. But for this bull run, I think, HBAR is a much better pick for me. Hedera is very unique and very interesting. I think it's going to be around for a very long time. It's not a micro cap, so there's stability there, right? There's a proven community. HBAR is listed in good exchanges. Market cap, again, is very massive. Not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's very stable. I think it's very amazing. Kind of shares a lot of the similar qualities of Bitcoin, where it feels a little bit stable in that sense. Of course, I feel like this is more risky than Bitcoin, even though there's always going to be risk. But in my opinion, this feels like a no-brainer pick for me. If I'm not looking for a micro cap, but I'm not looking for a dinosaur that could maybe do a 3x, what can I find in between? I think hands down it's going to be something like HBAR. Now, HBAR is not the only project I believe in, but I feel like it has to be one of my foundational pieces in my portfolio. I feel like I can have some fun, right? I can believe in meme coins, blockchain gaming, and all this. They're fun, they're very interesting, but sometimes I also have to believe in a fundamentally amazing project, much like Hedera. So when it comes to HBAR, it's a no-brainer. Not to mention, at the price of $3, considering current circulating supply and market cap would be around $127 billion, doesn't feel too much to ask for, in my opinion. I mean, if people are saying that Bitcoin could reach, around $300,000, which at that point, give or take, the market cap would be around $6 trillion, are we saying that out of that much, like around 100 plus billion can't flow into this somewhere during a fully fledged bull run? That's the way you take a look at it. And it really is just a waiting game at this point. The altcoin season, in my opinion, is really going to kick into 5th gear when it wants to, right? I can't tell it to do that. I can't draw some random things on a price chart and make that happen. Again, I can't do that. Seeing positive news like this when it comes to Hedera, again, I think is very amazing for its future. I think it's a good Kickstarter, if anything, a good thing to kind of propel it moving forward, maybe in the world of real estate. Who knows, right? Moving forward. So I like this, but again, $3 wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace. Bye.